hitting rock bottom. I still remember the day I realized I was completely broke. Fresh out of college, I had $0 in savings, a few $1,000s in credit card debt, and a modest entry-level job that barely covered rent and bills. It felt hopeless, like I was drowning under financial stress. For context, many Americans are in a similar boat. Roughly 34% of people report living paycheck to paycheck, and only about 54% even have a 3-month emergency fund. That was me back then. I woke up one morning, looked at my bank balance, literally zero, and realized I had to change or stay stuck. Facing reality and setting goals, I made a simple promise to myself. I will build real wealth, even if I start from scratch. That first step was brutal honesty. I listed out everything: my income, about $3,000 a month after tax, and my expenses: rent, $1,200, utilities and food, $600, student loan payment, $250, credit card interest, $100, everything else. That meant I was living paycheck to paycheck, just like 1/3 of Americans, and without any savings buffer. It scared me, but it also lit a fire. I decided to aim for a series of small goals. First, $1,000 in emergency savings, then $10,000, then $50,000, and ultimately $100,000 net worth. To get there, I needed a plan. I learned about simple budgeting methods. For example, the popular 50-30-20 rule. This divides your after-tax income into needs, 50%, wants, 30%, and savings or debt, 20%. I adjusted it to my life. 50% went to rent and essentials, 30% to living expenses, and 20% to paying off debt and saving. It wasn't easy at first. I cut out unused subscriptions, dined out less, and tracked every penny in a spreadsheet. It hurt at first, but seeing those numbers made me determined. Key steps I took early: track every dollar and make a budget, 50-30-20 allocation, cut non-essential spending, eat at home, use public transport, set a tiny initial goal, $500 to $1,000 emergency fund, paying off debt and building an emergency fund. With a budget in place, I targeted my highest interest debt first. My credit card was charging me 18% interest, a money leak. I followed expert advice and threw every extra dollar at it. NerdWallet even explicitly recommends paying off high-interest debt before anything else. After a few months of strict budgeting, no takeout, no splurges, I paid off that credit card. That small win, going from $5,000 debt to zero credit card balance, felt empowering. Next, I built a real emergency fund. I opened an online high-yield savings account. These currently offer around 4 to 5% APY, which is sky high compared to a normal checking account. Every paycheck, I set up an automatic transfer to this savings. Even $100 a month adds up. NerdWallet says any level of saving will add up and recommends automatic transfers to a high-yield account. I followed that advice. Slowly, my savings went from $0 to $500, then $1,000. When emergencies hit, having that fund felt good. I learned that many Americans lack this cushion. In fact, a survey found over 40% have no emergency savings at all. I was not going to be one of them. Now, when my car needed a repair or an unexpected medical bill came, I had cash ready. In fact, Bankrate warns that unpredictable expenses often force people to tap their savings or take on credit debt. By having that high-yield emergency fund, I saved myself from high-interest loans, increasing income with side hustles and career moves. Budgeting and saving can only go so far. To reach $100,000 faster, I knew I had to earn more. I started a side hustle. I delivered food a few weekends a month and did freelance writing on nights and weekends. I wasn't alone. A recent Bankrate survey found that 36% of US adults have a side hustle in 2024. Among millennials, it's even higher. For me, the side gigs brought in an extra $300 to $500 per month. I used that extra money wisely, partly to accelerate debt payments and partly to boost savings. About 30% of side hustle income went straight to my growing emergency fund or retirement accounts, and 30% for everyday expenses, fuel, groceries, for delivery routes, etc. I even learned that many side hustlers save at least some of that income. Bankrate reports 31% save part of their extra earnings. I joined them. At the same time, I worked hard at my day job. I asked for raises and took on additional projects. Within a year, I went from $40,000 to $50,000 salary. I also made sure to take any professional development courses at work, some were free, and network. Increasing income felt great. It meant more to save and invest. Automating savings and investing investing early. With more income, I automated my long-term savings. At work, I signed up for the 401k retirement plan and contributed enough to get the full employer match. This was an easy first investment, essentially free money, and experts strongly urge grabbing any match. For example, if your boss matches 100% of the first 3 to 5% you contribute, that's an instant 100% return on that portion. Taking that match became one of my best moves. I also opened a Roth IRA. As of 2023 to 2025, the IRS allows up to $6,500 to $7,000 per year for people under 50. I made it a goal to max out my Roth IRA each year. Those contributions are after-tax money, so in retirement withdrawals, including all the growth, are tax-free. It felt like planting a tree, tiny seed deposits now for big shade later. Then came investing. I started small. Each month, I took a few $100s and put it into a broad market index fund, like an S&P 500 index. This was scary at first. The stock market can bounce around. But historically, the S&P 500 returns about 10% per year on average. Dollars invested over time grow faster. Investopedia explains that since 1957, the S&P 500 delivered approximately 10.3% average returns. So dollar-cost averaging investing a fixed amount each month generally pays off in the long run. I set up automatic contributions, so I never had to time the market. Watching it grow, milestones at $10,000, $50,000. Year by year, small deposits and compound interest began to snowball. At 6 months in, I hit $5,000 net worth. At 1 year, I celebrated $10,000. Each milestone felt huge. I remember thinking, wow, that's more than the median net worth of someone under 35, which is only about $39,000 according to a Federal Reserve survey. In other words, in a few years, I'd have more than double the median for my age group. By year 3, I had around $30,000 saved invested. In parallel, my retirement accounts and index funds were churning away. Thanks to compound interest, each dollar I invested earned more money. Emphasizes this: compound interest can do its job if you are consistent. I contributed regularly and let time work its magic. For example, if you invest $200 per month at an 8% annual growth in 10 years, that's almost $36,000 out of your pocket, turning into over $38,000 extra, almost double your contributions. Overcoming setbacks. No journey is without stumbles. In 2020, during the market crash, my investments dipped 20 to 30%. It was scary to see my account down. That feeling is normal. Markets fluctuate all the time. But instead of panicking, I kept investing. History shows that market dips don't last forever. For perspective, Investopedia notes that a $100 investment in the S&P 500 in 1957 would grow to about $82,000 by 2025, despite crashes and bear markets along the way. That long-term gain reassured me. I stayed calm and kept buying when prices were low, a strategy known as dollar-cost averaging. Another hurdle, a big car repair and a minor surgery 1 year, almost wiped out my emergency fund. I had to dip into savings, something like what 51% of Americans do for sudden car or medical expenses. It was a wake-up call. I rebuilt the fund quickly afterward and even increased my automatic savings percentage. I also researched insurance and warranties. Turns out many people rely on ER savings for essentials, so I learned to better prepare. Even motivation waned sometimes. I occasionally splurged on a fancy vacation or gadgets, which set me back, but instead of guilt, I treated those as one-time lessons. I'd recalibrate my budget, refocus on goals and move on. Each minor setback taught me discipline. It reminded me how far I'd come from that $0 starting point and kept me motivated to keep pushing toward $100,000. The final push to $100,000. By around year 5, my net worth was knocking on $100,000. I still chipped away. More side hustles, steady investing, and careful budgeting. To speed it up, I fine-tuned some strategies. Increase retirement contributions. I went from 5% to 10% of my paycheck into 401k because at my income, each $100 extra now feels like more than $100 later due to employer match and tax benefits. Optimize investments. I shifted some money into a total stock market fund and low-cost ETFs for broader diversification. Smart saving. I took advantage of higher FDIC rates. High-yield savings rates were still strong, around 4 to 5% APY, so I kept extra cash there rather than sitting in a checking account at 0.1%. Even parking cash for a month in a good account earned a few extra dollars. Finally, one morning I checked my net worth. $100,421, assets minus liabilities. I sat there for a moment, grinning and nearly in tears. That was the moment. I had turned $0 into over $100,000 through grit and smart financial moves, reflection and inspiration. Reaching $100,000 was surreal. I wasn't born rich. I was an average person with student loans and a modest salary. But these steps added up. My journey shows anyone can do it with discipline. Budget firmly, pay debt, save consistently, invest wisely, and don't shy from earning extra income. It's also about mindset. I replaced "I can't" thoughts with "I will." Whenever I felt down, I reminded myself of real statistics. For instance, the typical person under 35 has only about $39,000 net worth. I used that as motivation. I was shooting past that mark. When I felt anxious about market dips, I remembered that historically, an average 10% return ultimately rewards patient investors. I visualized my future self looking back, thanking me for the sacrifices. If you're watching this, know this: you don't need to be a financial genius or have a huge paycheck. Use the tools and knowledge out there. For example, experts consistently advise setting up automatic savings, contributing to any employer match, and taking advantage of high-yield accounts. Those are simple actions anyone can do, and if I can start from nothing, so can you. Your journey is unique, but it starts the same way, one step, one choice at a time. If my story inspired you, start today. Open a budgeting app or a spreadsheet, set a small goal like saving your first $500, or pick up a side gig for extra cash. Every little bit adds up. I'd love to hear about your financial goals and progress. Drop a comment below about where you're starting and what steps you'll take. Hit that subscribe button for more stories and tips. I'm on this path right alongside you. Together, we can build wealth one habit at a time.